Alright, in today's video we're going to be talking about a couple of things. First being the proper setup for your hot water heater in your concession trailer, and we'll also be talking about proper winterization for your concession trailer. You'll see here I've already filled the freshwater tank. Got it about a third of the way full. Went ahead and filled it up here in the city water box. See if we can focus in. You'll want to use a food grade water hose, whatever you use to fill it, but I've already filled it up right here. The other option would be to screw it in directly here. If I wanted to hook up the water pressurized, then I could just bypass the fresh water tank altogether. But in this case, we're went ahead and filled the fresh water tank. See, here is our hot water heater, fresh water tank, water pump right here. So one of the first things we want to discuss is the hot water heater. What you want to do before you plug this hot water heater in, it will come to you unplugged. And first thing you want to do is make sure that you have water running through your lines for your hot water before you plug this in. Okay, so in this case here, I'm going to go ahead and plug in the water pump. Depending on what model you get, it may already be plugged in, and you may just have a switch on the inside. For this particular model, we plug it in out here. So we're going to walk on inside the trailer. And for both sinks, hot water, we want to make sure that we get a continuous flow, just like that. And same thing on this side, a continuous flow. So once we have that continuous flow, then we can feel pretty certain that that the hot water heater itself has been filled with water. And the reason why we want to do that is because if you plug in your hot water heater without water in it, chances are you're going to burn the element up in it. And obviously you want to avoid that if at all possible. So from here, now that you have hot water, water running through the hot water lines, you simply want to plug it in right here, then turn your thermostat up to the proper temperature, check your temperature, and that's pretty much it. Just wanted to cover that to hopefully help you avoid burning up an element of hot water heater and having to go through the trouble of replacing that. It's not overly expensive usually, but it's still a bit of a pain to have to deal with when it's something that can be easily avoided. So that being said, obviously we're not going to plug it in. There's no need in that now. We're going to go ahead and talk about the winterization process. So what we have is three possibilities for winterization. The first being that you can go ahead and set a space heater. You can put it here in the V-nose, or you could put it inside of the trailer. Keep your access door open from inside of the trailer right here. That way it keeps the whole trailer warm, at least above freezing temperatures. So that's an option. The other option is you can pour pure grain alcohol here into the fresh water tank. Now you'll want to check and see what the proper ratio is versus water to make sure that you're going to have an adequate mix or appropriate mix. So you'll pour that in, then run it through your lines, and that will help keep it from freezing. The other way, which is the way that we're going to go over here, is using an air compressor to blow all of the water out of the lines. So it's pretty easy. We go ahead and fit these things with this air fitting right here. If you can get a good focus on it. And now, depending on what model trailer you get, you may have a clear line like this, or it may just have that air fitting may be hooked directly to a blue PEX line like that comes out of here. Same principle though. Okay. So to start off with, we'll go back here and see. I already have the air compressor. That's the size that we use. I went ahead and left it back here. It can be kind of loud when it starts to run. So the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that my lines are off inside, because I'm going to blow out the hot water heater first and get the water out of that line. But before we start, what we have here is that these ball valves, when this is in line with your water lines, that means it's an open line. When it's turned like this, it means it's off. So when we go to winterize this and blow these lines out, we want to have this one off that leads to the fresh water tank, because we don't want to push air back into here. We'll also want to make sure that this line is off here, as it is now, to keep, because that's your drain valve where you will drain, and we'll see that here in just a little bit, where we'll drain the fresh water tank. So make sure these are off, because if not, air will escape through here. So now we have this one off and this one off. This line here, we want to go ahead and put it in line, turn it on, or where it's open. And then the next step is we have this line running from the hot water heater, and this drains down below the trailer, just out into the open. And we're going to go ahead and open this valve to the hot water heater. All right, I'm going to go ahead and unplug my water pump for the time being. So we have that open, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook up the air compressor and blow as much of the water out of the hot water heater before we go to the lines inside the trailer. So I'll see if I can get this where we can see the hookup. And you'll hear the air compressor kick on here in just a minute. Alright, so now we're pushing the water out. You can see the water coming out from here. Alright, I'm going to give this, give this just a minute and to get the water out of the hot water heater. And I'm going to shut this off and be back in just a second to go over the balance. Alright, so I've let this thing drain. We're to the point where the hot water heater is just blowing mostly a mist. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and unplug or unfasten this. Close this valve, and we're going to go ahead and go through the process of draining the lines. It will still, whatever waters might be left in the hot water tank will now just push through the hot water lines. So what I'm going to go ahead and do now is going inside and show you how that process works. So before we hook it back up, what we're going to want to do is make sure that we have at least one line open. Allow the water to come through. So now once we're at this point here, we can toggle back and forth. Allow the water line to push out whatever water is in it. And just basically go back and forth and hit all the lines. You want to make sure that it's blowing out this air when you're done. It may be just a little bit of a mist. And it will spit and sputter for just a little while it pushes the balance of that water out. So we've got a majority of the water out, I would say. Alright, so now we're just blowing out air. So at this point, the water is out of the line, so now you've removed the risk of any water being in here freezing and cracking your faucets. So we will leave those open. And we can come back around and unfasten from the nozzle. And since we're done with the air compressor, I'm going to go ahead and turn it off. And so our final steps, now that we know we have the water out of the hot water heater, we have the waters pushed through and out of the lines here, we want to go ahead and open these back up, so we can go ahead and open the valve from the fresh water tank, and now open the valve that drains below the trailer. That way the balance of the water in the fresh water tank can drain out. And you should be able to see the water draining right here. It will take a little bit. There may be a trace amount of water left in the water tank once it's all down. It's kind of hard for it all to drain out, but that's not going to hurt anything as long as the majority of it drains out. Now you do have the option of go ahead and draining the freshwater tank before you start the winterization process. It's up to you. You can do it before or after, because this valve will be closed while you're doing it. When you open up, all whatever water's left will drain right down through here. So while that's draining, the last step that you want to do is come over here to the wastewater tank. And depending on what you can have a 3-inch fitting, 3-inch hose to hook up here, or a 3/4 inch hose that you can hook up right here. Twist this off. Here we go. Twist that off. Hook up your hose, whichever one, again, whether it's the 3-inch or the 3/4, and pull this gate valve, and whatever water is in will drain out. So it's all clean water, so no problem with draining that here. And that pretty much completes the steps of the winterization. If you have any questions, please give us a call here at SLE. Hopefully this helps you and helps to keep you from making any mistakes and leaving any water where it will freeze inside of your trailer. And we appreciate it. And our number here is 615-641-7720.